Welcome back to the HYROX coaching podcast. So firstly, apologies, we're obviously supposed to be out pre-Phoenix, but we had some technical issues, so we're re-recording now. We were going to do periodization today, but we're going to push that to next week, do a big review of everything that happened in Phoenix in the solo race here, then a quick look forward to the doubles race tomorrow, and then we'll round up with Q&A at the end before closing it out. And then next week we'll go deep dive into the periodization, which probably runs well off of what we talk about today. So we'll quickly roll through what happened in Manchester and Amsterdam last week, because two big races there, two 5-day events in Europe. So I'll do Manchester first. I'll race there in the doubles. Slightly different course to what it has been the last couple of years, but pretty similar setup, 3-lap race. So a pretty honest course, and none of the times were groundbreaking. But in the solo race, in the men's race, you had Charlie Bottrell with a 55.16, Harry Thompson close behind 56.14, and Mark Dean with a 56.23. It is worth noting though, we'll talk about in a minute, that all three of them raced on Wednesday or Thursday, so they were quite far ahead of the rest of the pack. In fact, even fourth place raced on the Wednesday as well. And then in the women's race, I didn't actually check what days these raced, but Poppy Jones basically ran away with it, ran a 1:01.18, 4 minutes ahead of Amy Middlemass with a 1:05.39, and then Yolanda King with a 1:06.07. So another big spread across the women's there as well. I think we talk about it when we talk about Phoenix, the depth of the women's race just not being where the men's is, because the spread is a couple of minutes across the top 10, whereas big 5-6 minute chunks over the top 3 in the women's race.
Yeah, agreed. So we could certainly, with Phoenix, there was almost 10 minutes between first and 13th. We had two DNFs, so I think with the men's even, and we can talk about that even say Dylan and Charlie didn't have their best race, they were still within sort of 3 or 4 minutes of almost the world record. So you will see the depth get there with the women's, but obviously there's just those top few, and by the looks of it, just Joanna almost leagues above everyone, and then a little bit of a cliff. Whereas, and we'll talk about this, just how good the men's field is in terms of depth and what's coming through. So, yeah,
cool. If we have a quick look at the Amsterdam results,
I've got them up. So Hitty took 1 and 2. He ran, say, Friday and Sunday. Bit of a comical debate: does he run faster with or without a shirt? 2 blazing fast times: 54.54 day 1. Then a 54.15 on day 2. Second place Martin Eindhoven, good time 56.04, and then a few other guys that have sort of come in under 58, but obviously very, very impressive performance to run two 54s and to run faster. Second race of the weekend, very impressive, and I think you can talk about the differences in sleds and how sled tracks later in the weekend can prove to be slower. So I think to do that, certainly very impressive. Sort of goes a little bit under the radar. Qualified pretty early, hasn't raced a major since. I think he'll potentially run Warsaw. I'm not too sure. He may just do a big block and try to blast a podium or a win at Worlds. So pretty. Sort of quiet achiever, but really impressive times.
Yeah, he loves the home race, so that Warsaw race is the same weekend as Rotterdam, so I wouldn't be surprised if we didn't see him show up in Rotterdam and race there rather than Warsaw, because he doesn't need to, and the money isn't really good enough to draw him out or away for a couple of days. But Warsaw is only up the road, I suppose, technically for him. I
do wonder if he'll run the European regional, because I know he's presenting at the Coaches Summit, so he's going to be there. We run it. Yeah. Watch your space. Do you want to talk about the sleds in Manchester?
Yeah. So Manchester and Amsterdam. So I got the data nerd, my wife, to have a look at all of the data across the things, because we debated it last week, or discussed it anyway, and you said about we probably need to get all of the elites or the people with an elite license in the same wave. And I think now this is a no-brainer for us anyway, but it's nice to have stats and data to back that up. So she did a full rundown of both races, Wednesday and Thursday versus the Sunday race. So there was very little difference between Wednesday and Thursday because the sleds hadn't really been pushed very much. And we only looked at sled push because the data would have been massive, but just to get a view of that. So in both races, there was a clear difference between the sled push performance times on Sunday than there was on Wednesday and Thursday, and it was slower. So she looked at all of the effects, so the effects across percentiles, across the mean, the median, and then even when she took out for the bottom 10% of performers, there was a 1% difference in sled push times, or overall times, depending on the sled push. So that in an hour-long race, that's like 36 seconds. I know Heidi didn't, but the bloke's a freak anyway, and he probably was fresh over both of them and doing it as a session. So his splits weren't very different. But across all of it, they were looking at like a 1% difference between the sled times from, the 1% overall difference from the sled time from Wednesday, Thursday, and Sunday.
On the first 2 days, it represented 4% of race time, and then it went up to sort of 5%, which is obviously doesn't sound like a lot, but it is. And like we said on the podcast, it didn't get released for the fact that I'm technically retarded. It's the fact that it's taken longer. You've had to expend a lot more energy. It's not like everyone on Sunday just thought I'm going to pace it more and go 36 seconds slower. They've had to exert a lot more force on the sled and have still pushed slower, which it's all cumulative. The fatigue stacks up. So I think it just circles back to a point that I made in one of my social media posts, that you have to, if people are racing for these qualification points, everyone with an elite license just has to be in the same wave, ideally in the same wave. Obviously, if the waves are limited to 40 and there's 46 guys, I think you could still seed it on time. But you have to race head to head if you're going for points. It just makes sense, and it's not a hard thing for HYROX to do. So I hope they do that moving forward. I know even with the Phoenix Pro Solo, it's a very, very good field, but it's spread over the first 3 waves. And again, it's still the same night, but it is a different race in essence. You have slightly different judges. The first wave usually has the strictest judging. Very often the first wave will have an individual judge for each person, and it's obviously not to say that people in the later waves are going to obviously deliberately try to cheat, but there is just like, if you don't have someone hovering over you, you might be a little bit loose with your standards, and you just and also it's not that uncommon that sometimes people get overjudged in those early waves. So again, you just want a fair playing field now that everyone's racing for the same amount of points.
Yeah, it has to be, and then if they don't do it, then they're missing out. I think that the athletes are probably going to start raising these points now because they're the ones that are going to be affected by it, at all levels. All right, let's do it then. So the big, we obviously we talked about it the other day pre, and then we didn't release the podcast but Phoenix happened this morning, the solo race, and the women's and the men's. So women's was first. We'll talk about the women's first, and then we'll go into the men's. But this was. I only just finished watching this about a half hour ago. The women's race was a pacing masterclass to me, and a complete pacing mess from other people. And I think it showed again in both races how much pacing has an effect towards that back end of the race. And then I think our job here is probably to talk about how training would affect how this is happening. But like Joanna ran away with a world record in 56.02, or it came out with rounded up to 56.03, which is insane. And she looked like she was out for a Sunday morning jog. And if you're racing, and even when you watch the world champs and stuff, and Tim looks the same, they just super in control of where they're at, riding that that threshold line, dipping in and out in the stations, and just controlling it all. Whereas when you watched Lauren, who finished second, and she finished, a good 2.5 minutes behind, she just went out of the gate like a lunatic, and everything just went backwards from there. And we don't normally see her blow up on the lunges and the wall balls, but like they were some. I obviously don't know her running into the race or anything, but she went out as if she was going to try and run a 54 and ended up running a 58.5. So I know she always goes out hard, but I don't see it paying off for her now that these other girls or other ladies are getting stronger. I think she's going to have a tough time in the next couple of years if she keeps racing like that, because they're catching up slower than the men, but they're definitely catching up in my opinion.
It just looked hard, didn't it? Chris Hinshaw was commentating, and like you said, it was a stark contrast. I mean, I don't think Joanna had a bead of perspiration when she finished. And Lauren just looked like she was heaving. I'm looking at splits now, so I think the first and second run was slightly shorter. So Joanna went 3:39, 3:48, 4:01, 4:12, 4:02, 4:11, 4:08, 3:57. So I think the first two runs must have been slightly shorter, and the last six a little bit longer, for whatever reason. And then, Lauren sort of 3:37, 3:50, 4:16, 4:16, 3:59, 4:18, 4:09, 3:56, and then a 4:01 wall ball, whereas Joanna had a 3:25 wall ball.
3:21?
3:20.
Yeah, like that's... Yeah, that to me, her runs she's managed to stay consistent enough on the runs, 3 through to 8 or whatever, but that's not reflective of her usual back end stations, I don't think. And like, she looks physically in pain on most of the stations, whereas Joanna looks smooth, and like her sled pull was insane. Like I don't know if I've seen any of the women go that far under 3 minutes before. It was a 2:50, I think. So she's obviously
a 16-minute PB, they were saying.
Seconds.
Yes, so 16 seconds faster than she's ever fought it.
That's big, isn't it? Like at that kind of level, that's a big chunk. So whether she's been hitting that as her target station in training, and that's where she's been pushing a lot of her training towards, it's obviously paid off. But I don't know. She trains under JK, right, or with JK?
I believe so. Yeah. I mean, if you look at her station place. This is Joanna. Second on the skis, second on the push, first on the pull, fifth on the burpees. She's one of the taller athletes, so you can forgive that. First on the rows, second on the farmers, first on the lunges, second on the wall balls. Compared to Lauren first on the ski, fourth on the push, seventh on the pull, fourth on the burpees, fourth on the row, 10th on the farmers, 12th on the lunges, 6th on the wall balls. So that's where that 2.5 minutes.
The back end. Yeah, it's I don't know. She's managed to get away with it in the last couple of years racing like that, but I think now that Johanna, I think if we saw Meg back in here as well, I think that would be a really good element to see how Lauren would change her tactics, because she doesn't need to go out that hard, because she's putting 10, 15 meters into Joanna on the run, but it's not getting her anywhere. It's not that isn't benefiting anywhere. It's if they ran together, it wouldn't make much difference. And I think Joanna normally just sits on her shoulder, but she obviously felt that she didn't need to today and was confident in her ability to pace it better, and she has in the last couple of majors. So I think there needs to be some better thought on how she's racing them, I think, because she's obviously capable. She's multiple world champ, some of the fastest times ever, but I think if she raced it better, there's more in the tank. And I think she just needs to calm down a bit at the beginning. She's not got the attributes to be a amazing skier. She's she's pretty small, so she just needs to damage limitation there, I think, and not red line so early, which is what you would preach anyway to most athletes, I think.
Yeah, look, obviously you can't know her tactics, but it just looked super aggressive from the start. It didn't look like a composed race, and like we've spoken about, obviously the rest of the field is catching up, and I think it's hard to say that Joanna's just not leagues above. It would have been interesting to see Meg. I think it's fair to say it was a fast course. Obviously, if a world record gets run, and I think Ronk was 1 second off, so it's fair to say it's a fast course. It would have been interesting to see Meg fit and healthy and what she would have done. I think she was looking pretty impressive coming back in her 2 races, so hopefully she's good for the World Champs, and hopefully it sort of becomes a bit more of a battle, because first place winning by 2.5 minutes, although it's awesome to see, it's not great racing. It's super impressive, but then it's sort of a little bit boring.
I think I think Linda Meyer again proved her ability as race experience and how to stay calm and just work your way through the field, because she went from, I think she was like 12th after the sled push. Her sled push was the 13th fastest, which is not really what you want, but she finished with the fastest warballs, so she went from 6th or 7th going into the warballs to finish 4th and qualify again. So you can never write her off. I actually said on the live stream, Linda's having a shitter here, but then she qualified, and I should have probably known that was going to happen anyway from her previous events at that. And I think Emily, we want to talk about.
Let's obviously the podium was Joanna. Podium was Joanna, Lauren, Vivian. They had all already qualified. They'd all qualified in Hamburg, and then the 3 to qualify were Linda, Gabrielle, who's an APAC racer. So great to see her get through, and then Lena putters, and it was quite. You watched it. I watched it live. Sort of feel for Emily Darman. They basically had they had the camera on her, and I sort of saw it coming past, and I saw Lena run past, and pretty heartbreaking obviously for Emily. She was sort of free throwing it by the end, going with one hand, so it obviously just had red line.
Her legs were certainly gone by the end. It looked like she was just spent. But if you want to, I suppose you have to push in these events on these races to qualify for World Champs. It's never going to be a free ride. Not many people are going to be able to cruise through it like Joanna did. So you've got to push, and if you're not riding that line and taking that gamble, it might not come off. She could have maybe paced it a little bit easier. She's very new to the sport as well, right? A year ago she was still doing judging at her first event, and now she's racing and only missing out on an elite World Champ spots by 15 seconds or whatever it is. So it's hard for us to speculate how these people train and what their race tactics are, and all of them I imagine train slightly differently. Maybe the top 3, I don't know, is Vivian with
she's
the hybrid engine as well?
I think she's got another coach. I remember her saying after Hamburg when she came second that she had changed coach, but I think she still follows their programming. Don't quote me on that, but
I know Linda Meyer's a couple of coaches I think as well, and she's former world champ. She skins it a different way as well, and they look at more of movement quality and that type of thing, and she doesn't actually run that much, because I don't know if she's still got a full-time job, but until recently she had a full-time job still, right? So she trained around that, which is pretty mad. And then I know
Emily trains under Hitty. I know that for a fact. So
all right.
Both
a lot of volume, I'd imagine.
Yeah. Oh look, Emily's obviously a pretty light and not a big individual. So just unfortunately, probably hasn't done a lot of. I don't know what her background is. I think it's triathlon or something. She's obviously a very good runner, but that strength endurance piece just failed her a little bit by then. Still a pretty respectable time, 60:34. What'd she do on the wall balls? 60:53. She ran a sub 60 in Stockholm.
Just recently, right?
Very recently.
Her wall balls were 5:09, eh? So it's nearly 2 minutes on there, so she's down into
And I'm sure we'll talk about the men's, but obviously the ability to go unbroken on wall balls is still going to win you races or get you qualified, because Linda obviously went unbroken. I don't know what she came into the wall balls at, but we'll talk about with the men's. Obviously with JK, the ability to go unbroken on wall balls is still probably going to separate races for the next maybe 1 or 2 seasons. I would say, the next 18 months, the Elite 15, they're all going to be able to go pretty close to unbroken, other than the odd occasion, but it's still separating races.
Unbroken and fast is the key, because there's people doing them unbroken in 340, 345 versus people doing them in 320, which is a difference. Like, you know, it looks cool doing it unbroken and it's good to say, but you could still be 20, 25 seconds off if your cadence isn't good enough, if you haven't grooved it, and if you're not training that. So if they're not able to do it, and you're getting to that point now where you're coming into the war balls at 50, 51 minutes, that's fine. But if you're going to take 5-6 minutes for the war balls, you're not going to go anywhere in these races now. So there's still some racing tactics to race to your ability, but you need to be doing a shitload of war balls and that war ball stuff in training to make sure that you could come in like Ronk. Ronk knows that he's racing hard for 50 minutes and still going to run in and be able to do those war balls unbroken. A lot of it's, you know, he's done it that many times now, it's psychological, but he's just been doing this for, you know, 7 years. So it doesn't happen overnight, but you need to be in there like grafting. If you're putting war balls into your program once a week at the end of a session for 100 or 200, you're going to get a massive shock, and even at all levels that's going to happen, because even the longer you're out there, the more you spend. Like, if you're not, you know, they're racing at a higher level, but it's still an impact on the legs. So I think war balls is a massive limiter, and I think this race showed it more than anything. But it was a great race to watch, and it was exciting the whole way through. Sometimes they turn into a little bit of a foregone conclusion pretty early, but this was back and forth all the way to the war balls, and I think we need to talk about the war balls. Was a bit strange for me. I watched it there. I don't know if you saw what happened with Sean Noble and Rich Ryan. So Rich Ryan, like, I don't know if he complained his judge was over judging him or being too strict, asked for a new judge, and they changed the judge, but they didn't change his, they changed Sean Noble's. So Rich Ryan finished with the same judge. Sean Noble got to 51 reps with no reps. They changed his judge, and he ended up getting 9 or 10. Correlations is not equal causation, so it could have happened anyway because of fatigue.
I thought Rich
it's weird.
I thought Rich was just pacing it to the nth degree.
Nah, he did. He looked over at the head judge, did this, and pointed at his judge about 45, 46 reps. So he'd got 7 no reps by then, I think. Yeah, looked around. I don't know if he's looking for Matt or whatever, but he did this symbol, pointed at his judge. Another judge came over from as if we were looking at them, and they changed Sean's judge instead. So he did the same thing and changed Sean's instead of Rich's. So I don't know whether they made a mistake or what, but Rich's reps looked okay. Like, they weren't amazing. They weren't like ass to grass type stuff where there was no ambiguity. So for him to ask for a new judge because he thought he was being over judged, I think is weird, and I don't think that should be able to happen.
Being over judged or asking for a new judge?
Asking for a new judge. Like, you can't halfway through a football game ask for a new referee. Like, unless that person is.
You can ask for it. It's funny. That's happened to Rich. I think it happened in Hamburg. He got pulled for his burpees, and then I think you can ask for a head judge if you think you're being judged far too unfairly. And I think Rich is a pretty experienced athlete. Like you said, I hadn't seen them side on, but you'd have to assume. I mean, when you're hitting depth, and you can feel the proper reception, like when you hit depth and then you're getting called for it. Sometimes for whatever reason the judge is just looking at something, or they're wanting you to go ass to grass, and
to be fair, the judge told him every time though, and he was touching his leg to say you're not low enough. So it wasn't like he was giving and he'd already he'd done 53 reps and 46 of them were all right. So there must have been, he sat right there. It's hard to tell. I know that we could go through, judging's going to be, there's going to be something every race, and you're never going to get it. They're never going to get it spot on. But I think changing halfway through, well, it backfired because he changed it to a different judge. He changed it for the wrong person. So he's seen Sean Noble off there really, but luckily Sean's qualified anyway there. So I don't know. It feels a bit weird asking for another judge halfway through because you're not happy. But I don't know when you are completely buggered at the end of a race, sometimes it feels like you're hitting depth, and when you watch it back, it's maybe not, because your legs are gone. So sure, asking for a head judge to come over and watch, fine, but and then I think that's it. They've made a little bit of boo-boo there, trying to change the wrong judge.
Okay. Well, that's a good segue to the men's. Do you want to roll through how everyone did?
Yeah, so Ronkovic went out hard, got caught a fair whack in the middle, but still stayed strong, and then finished off with his characteristic unbroken wall balls for 53.16 or 53.15 and rounded up. But I think that's a second. There's a couple of seconds off the world record, so
1 or 2.
the splits are insane. Like when you look at and then the big surprise was, well, it wasn't a surprise because we've seen him do it before, but James Kelly paced it like a boss. Like he went through. No, we didn't talk. Nobody talked about him until the war balls, and then they were like, "Shit, here he comes!" And he went unbroken and he went fast, and it was impressive to watch. To be fair, like he's been caught out a few times and on the sled and push and pull, and then managed to come back out of nowhere. Right, so he's got history of it, and he's the back end of his race now is really good. So like you can never write him off, and that's him off to Stockholm. Not a surprise really. Rich Ryan, to be fair, Rich Ryan was a bit of a shock for me. I don't know about you as well. I didn't know how he would get on. He's got like an 8-week-old baby at home. He's had that quad issue. He had a bit of a calf thing as well before that. So he's raced an absolute fucking blinder there, really. And that little thing of the war balls is just me being pedantic and like finding it a bit strange and something I haven't seen before. But he still had some fucking race there, like, to be fair, to come through and finish on third in that kind of time.
If you look at, I'm looking at James' stations now. So 6th on the ski erg, 13th on the push, 10th on the pull, 7th on the burpee, 6th on the row, 10th on the farmers, 1st on the lunges, 1st on the wall balls. So it shows just how much that back part of the race matters. So look, obviously, people probably know Coach Colin. He's very good on the lunges, and he started cramping, which we can talk about what we're going to do training wise. But I think Coles can be incredibly quick on the lunges, and even James was faster than him by a few seconds. And then 3:19 wall balls. I think I don't know exactly where he came in. Must have been 6th or 7th of the wall balls, and then finished second. So again, it just shows. It shows still what a weapon it is to be able to go fast and unbroken in wall balls, and you can be pretty far behind and still. I think he just only ended up 12 or 13 seconds behind Ronk. So look, super impressive.
He came in 6th.
And finished second.
6th into the wall balls, yeah. So, similar to Linda climbing up through the ranks as well. And then Sean, I think let's talk Sean and his last 6-7 weeks. And I think it works well with talking about training and how we can skin this so many ways. So, I think there's a couple of ways that people might look at this and think, right, well, he's just come back and run a PB after not running for 6 or 7 weeks. But what we need to realise is he's been on the bike flat out, he's been skiing flat out and doing all his other stuff. He's obviously managed to do the sleds and stuff with his calf. So if you don't know, he hurt his calf coming back up from Melbourne, land back in Ireland. I think he hasn't run for 6 or 7 weeks. He ran for the first time 2 days ago or whatever. But if you might look at that and think, we don't need to do so much running. But we're looking at a bloke that is an absolute weapon, like a total beast anyway, and has a very, very high running capability. He's just managed to hold on to his aerobic fitness and develop it by hammering the bike and ski. If you are not born a genetic VO2 freak and you don't have a massive running economy anyway, it doesn't mean you can negate that by just biking and skiing. It's still a massive part of HYROX, and he's just obviously managed to hold on to it. And 6 weeks isn't really that long where you're going to lose a lot of running gain. He probably felt a little bit weird out there running today, I imagine, but like we have to take it with not with rose-tinted glasses and say that his training isn't optimal where he's been injured. But also, if you get injured and you've got a decent base of running already, it's not panic stations. The bike and all of the other ergs and stuff can get you through the season if it's done smartly anyway.
Look, I agree. I think that's a really important takeaway. Yes, you're right. You're not going to get great at HYROX by not being a good runner, but I do think it gives people, and I've used, and this is a very good example because I think Rich did a lot of bike and echo as well with the calf and quad strain, both qualified. So yes, you cannot become a great runner by not running. I think it proves that you can maintain a pretty high level of running fitness by using, I think I always say to people whenever there's a niggle or anything, sort of echo bike for threshold work and concept 2 bike for easy runs. And obviously there would be a limiting factor in a time domain where you would lose some running fitness, but it sort of seems like you can probably go 4 to 6 weeks and maintain the fitness you've got. Obviously, Sean is very, very fit and also, I think, incredibly resilient and has a mental fortitude that perhaps other athletes don't have, that he probably just has a high pain threshold in some, but Rich also proved it as well. I don't know. I think Rich was doing a little bit more running, but I know he was doing a lot of work on the bike and on the echo. So it's probably a good takeaway that people can, if there is a niggle and say you can't run for a week or two, you'll be fine. Don't. It's not panic stations. And if anything, there may be some complementary effect of the extra muscular endurance and the extra power you can generate on the echo bike without the impact.
Yeah, you have to be mindful that when you restart doing it again, you can't just jump back into where you were. So you need to filter that stuff out and filter the running in to do it smartly, so you don't end up back where you are. So I think it's not the same. Like, there isn't that impact. You can still keep the aerobic stuff, but you are going to feel slightly less poppy, or that ability to absorb the force is going to be different after. All of the other stuff, like lunges and things like that, and strength stuff are going to help, but you're probably a good few thousand steps going around there of your legs smashing into the floor. I think that's ability to absorb the force isn't the same on the bike and the echo as it is when you're out running. So you need to build up that running economy and ability to absorb force when you're tired and fatigued, so that you can race well. It's a stopgap, not a full-blown way to get better at HYROX. I think you'll probably reach a certain level, but after that you'd still need to keep ploughing away on the run. So we're talking about people that are genetically more capable than the majority of us, else they wouldn't be racing in these places. They've just they've got a really high ceiling, they just brought their floor up to that ceiling, and that's why they're racing so well. And they do it there's multiple different, they could probably train any other type of way and get there or thereabouts. So they're at that kind of level now where they're tinkering with what works for them and making it really specific, depending on the person.
Agreed. Any surprise performances in your mind? I've got 2. I certainly had one. I had one pick for the podium. I thought Dylan was gonna run away with it. I'm not sure what happened, but anyway, sometimes it's not.
Yeah, I think he said it himself. Yeah, one of those days. It's not my day. It's not my day. And you're looking at such fine margins at this level. Like, he still ran a mid 57, right? Which was the 99.9% of the world would be totally buzzing with, but it's not good enough at this level. So, but if you're off by 1 or 2%. In this sport, there's no room to hide. Like, you can have stations that aren't amazing, but you can make up the room in other places. You need to be decent across the board. If you have a bad day you're going to lose time on every station. He said he could run all right, but the stations just killed him. Yeah. So he'll be back. He knows.
I do wonder if there was a I think what you sent me about him talking about his race. He didn't feel great from the start. I do wonder if, knowing he's trying to qualify for the Elite 15 doubles, he just pulled back for 2 or 3%. If you know it's not going to be your day, if you know you're not on for a heater, why overextend? Again, I'm speculating, but it would have to come into play, wouldn't it?
I thought the same thing whilst he was out there. I thought, if you're going back this much, you're racing again in a couple of days, what's the point in pushing it? Especially when you've qualified already. What's the point? He's not going to win any money, so what's the point in pushing any harder? He's just got a half decent workout out there, and then a bit of exposure, which is good for Nike and good for him. And then obviously Charlie, we were expecting him to come in and give us a good rag after Melbourne, but he's been sick all week, so I suppose there's not really much you can say about that. If you're sick, you're sick. It's not a sport you can really do when you're near death, or even if with a basic cold, like it's gonna, you're on fine margins, you aren't going to get it there. So I think I did look through Alan Plough's through his splits, and he is a absolute station weapon. Like, some of his station splits are just ridiculous, and he obviously loses a bit out on the runs, but he went out with a chip on his shoulder, eh? Yeah. So after Jake Gate, he definitely went out to try and improve it, and it's a shame he didn't. But I think the next regional in London or Warsaw, I think if he carries on the same trajectory, he's there or thereabouts.
I think he'll have got, so he ran a 54.20. I'd have to look at his average
22
times, but I think that would get him pretty darn close, if not definitely in. 154 push, that was fastest. 259 pull, everything was pretty quick. Yeah, 247 lunges, 329 wall balls. So he's racing on Saturday with Cole in the double, so they should be good to watch.
Yeah, I think that's going to be fast. They're both really good on the stations, and obviously they're not slow on the runs, but when you're working together with somebody else, it gives you that ability to go so much quicker. And Cole's obviously really decent on. Anyway, he ran the mixed doubles world record, so it's not like he can obviously put out that output and recover enough to smash the runs out. So I think Thomas Turvick, the bloke's 40. Like, he's the same age as me, although I only look 25, but like, it's hard to believe. But he's that's insane, right? That he's up there mixing that. Rich Ryan's 39 as well, I think, but still, that's something.
Thomas is bigger though, obviously if you're carrying less mass, it's a bit, a little bit easier on the joints. Thomas is a big guy, and he was right there, and obviously just got pipped with the wall balls, but still very impressive time, 54.12. He'll be good to watch in that European qualifier. That's going to be an absolutely stacked race. That could go to anyone.
What did you take? Cole's next, I suppose. Then you've got the
so obviously I coached Cole. We had a good chat after. He was in. Felt like he was in really good shape. He was well positioned. We've spoken about this. I'm sure he won't mind me sharing. He lives in Canada. He just felt towards the back end of the race, and he said this happened last season too, just not being able to get any sort of impact volume. He felt a little bit more fatigued in the legs, but he was right there. So he was right there with JK coming out of the lunges, got to the wall balls, was not aware that he had a penalty, and he said that just crushed him. I think he's gone in the 320s for wall balls before. He had a 440 or 450. So he was happy with his fitness. We feel we're in a good place to probably get him qualified at the USA regional. That's all we can really say. He felt well positioned, and he just didn't know he had the penalty. He said he got to the wall balls and saw that, and that just broke him, which you can sort of understand. 15
well,
seconds.
He's the top North American there now, apart from Rich, right? So Rich is qualified, so it doesn't matter. So he's there to take that regional, which is good, and you've still got some time to build towards that as well, I suppose. It's there's only so much you can do when it's minus 30 outside and a couple of feet of snow, right? So we talked about a minute ago that the impact of running on ground is different to that on a treadmill. I suppose the more he can do, the better. But his winter's always going to be a little bit hindered by that lack of who wants to spend so much time on a treadmill, just day in, day out. There's other ways to spin it, I suppose. So, and that's, I suppose, that your jigsaw you need to sort to make.
I mean, that's the role of a coach, isn't it? It's just problem solving at a high level. So we'll figure it out.
I think Luke Greer was I think did we say, I don't know if I said it on the last time we recorded, but I knew he was going to go out running hard. I don't know if it was the best plan for him. I've talked to him before, and I said maybe like being able to run really fast doesn't mean you should run really fast if your stations aren't there. Yeah, I think, like, hey, it's his first time out there. He's really inexperienced in this kind of sport. It's a fucking good result, like 55.19 in a major 8th. But you can't afford to do a 5-minute warball. Like, you know, that's a minute and a half taken off that is then he's up there. But it's not a quick fix. But if he'd slowed that run down, the running a little bit from the beginning and not chased the world record holder, like world champ, would he have had more to give on the stations? I don't know. If I was coaching him, would I say, mate, you need to slow down 5 seconds on the runs to take a minute and a half off your war balls? Probably, because if you can do them in training, you can probably do them in a race if you're there or thereabouts. The bloke has absolute running potential coming out his arse, right? He could run with 14:15 or whatever it is. So his running at 3:25 pace isn't a big deal.
Yeah.
Like, but if you're running 3:15 to 3:20 and trying to put output on the stations, then, you know, I don't know. It's a tricky one.
11th on the ski, 8th on the push, 14th pull, 9th burpee, 13th row, 9th farmers, 11th lunges, 507 wall ball. So he's obviously, I think he's the quickest runner I'd say he's the quickest runner in the sport, but you can't have stations that let you down that much.
Yeah, so it's got to be damage limitation on the run, right? Why do you need to where it play to your strengths? And if your strength is running, then don't max out your runs. Go sub max effort and be able to have more energy to push out on the stations, because he has these like better stations than that before. I think like some of those, but it's hard to know these times because we don't know where they've, like, because it's an elite race, they have the mats in slightly different places, so we can't be sure, and there's no rocks on time, so we don't really know where they've included what stations from. But you know, a 2:17 push and a 3:16 pull is actually really bad. Good, but
they're just not elite. You know, if guys are going, and 3:25 lunge is decent, but I think JK went 2:35 and Cole went 2:39. So you can, if you're giving up a minute on one station and then a minute on wall balls, it doesn't matter how quick you are.
Yeah,
you know what I mean.
But like, I honestly think running slower, a little bit slower. Like, if you took 5 seconds off each run, that's 40 seconds, and it keeps him under the line. Like, he's in the mix on the lunges, and then he's still like, you take 40 seconds off that lunge time, it's 2:45, which is fast, but like, it equals it out, and then you're fresher into the wobbles or whatever. I don't know. It's a balancing act, and I suppose it's an experience thing, and this is why it's it keeps us coming back to this sport, and why it's such a fun sport to coach and be part of, because there's so many different angles and so many different ways you can attack it that it's exciting, and it makes racing fun, and it makes us. It's easy for us to sit here and speculate what he should have done or what I could have done better, but we weren't out there. We don't know what he's done in training. The only person that we know who's done anything is Cole, right? So I'd love to be able to sit down here with all of their training diaries for the last 6 weeks and see how different they all are and what types of things they do. Some of them are quite open with the stuff they do, like Rich Ryan posts a lot of what he does, but not everything. Some of them post nothing, but I think it's pretty interesting just to compare where they all come from, and then like where we do a round table and say this is where you should be working on, mate, or what we think you should be working on, and see if that. But it's all speculative, isn't it? But that's the fun part.
Any last thoughts before we go to Winch of the Week and questions?
Nah, I don't know. I'm looking forward to the next one. Well, the regionals, I suppose, are first.
Yeah, the regionals are coming up.
So
the first past the post race, it's sort of interesting sort of regionals. Obviously, the APAC becomes somewhat interesting in terms of obviously JK's qualified, so now we've got John Wynn and Bo Wills are probably the two elites today. Well, Bo has to travel. He's not going to qualify for Warsaw on time. Does John make the trip too? Because then I think Warsaw's not too long after. obviously John's auto qualified for Warsaw, so that will be interesting. Bo would probably be favourite to come down and win that, but there are certainly some guys like Dexter Buchanan who's running sort of 56s and getting faster, so that becomes an interesting APAC. Sort of there's a few at the top that could win it, and then unfortunately the depth isn't quite there like Europe, and then the European race is basically another Elite 15 race, so that could go to anyone.
Yeah, I think this is John's a great bloke. Like I've spoken to him a few times, and he's always friendly when you meet him, and I really hope he can get down to it's Brisbane, right, and qualify down there. I think it's his best bet now. It's going to be, I'd imagine, if they both go. Well, is Tom back? Tom Rogers going to be back racing?
He's trying his best. I talked to Tom a bit. I couldn't say with confidence. He's definitely trying. I'd say 50-50 at best.
So it's going to be if they both travel, Bo and John are going to be head to head, and I think that could be a great race because they've had some good back and forths in the last couple of years, I think, and it's been some good battles. But it's a long way to go, right?
It's a lot of travel too. So there's a couple of good guys worth mentioning. So there's Matt Sled, who's sort of running 57s and getting better. He trains with JK, very good triathlete, and then Dexter Buchanan just ran a 56 in Melbourne. You'd have to say, if obviously, it's not like a major that you can't imagine that Bo and John will come out 2 weeks before. So, being maybe a little bit travel affected, it certainly could be a tight race. It's probably between those four. JK will obviously be there, and you have to say he's probably going to win it, but he's qualified. So,
yeah. So it rolls down, right? So it's first past the post that hasn't qualified. So It's interesting. I preferred the last chance qualifier, to be fair, than this regional type thing. But because this now, it makes it harder for the Europeans. But not that I care. But it's just, I don't think it's the best way to do it. And the last chance qualifier was good, old-fashioned racing, head-to-head. Everybody got to throw their chips in, and we saw what it was. Now, you've still got to qualify for this regional. You still have the time, so it'll still only be 15. Whereas when you had 40 people in the same wave in Barcelona going for it last season, it was good racing, and it was good to watch. Well, I was in it actually, so it wasn't good to watch because I was in it. But it was good race, and the standard. I think the top 27 or broke an hour on what was a pretty tough Spanish course. But yeah. All right, let's this actually we'll do wins of the week because it kind of segues into periodization, how we're going to talk next week. So mine is social media posts from influencers or runfluencers or at HYROX influencers, just trying to get some clout on their posts saying this workout took 10 minutes off my HYROX time, right? I'm hyperbolic there, but this one workout took all this time off, and it is just pure bollocks. There is no one workout, right, that is going to make any bit of difference to your overall race time. And even if there was, we would never know that it was actually that one workout. It's the body of work that you do in that training program. So the only thing you can really say is, I did a training program, and in that training program, I had this workout. Not I did this 5 by fucking 3K at 2K pace, and I took 10 minutes off my HYROX time, because it's total nonsense. And then people start adding it into a training program. Well, I don't know if they do. I hope they don't. People start adding it into their thing, thinking it's going to be some kind of miracle workout, and it isn't. You need to have a proper training program that's built around you or your ability to get better. And one workout does bugger all. And I think that it just gets on my nerves. Come on, for us, it's quite obvious because this is our job, is what we do. But there are people out there that are looking for information that's helpful and useful for them to get better at something, and people just feed them shite. I think that we need to say it. We need to call this stuff out, because it's clickbait bollocks, and it leads into what we're going to talk about next week, and how a periodized, progressive, smart program is how you get better, not some magic workout. There are workouts that are more productive than others, sure, but you can't prove that one workout did anything to get you better. And my hands are sweating. I'm getting annoyed talking about it. I don't know why. It's just fucking. I know that it's full of nonsense.
Yeah, I second that. I hope. I think social media is going a little bit away from that. Or people just drowning out. The one magic workout, or you have to do this workout. Like the Norwegian 4x4 was probably a good example. Like it's one session. How does it fit into the context of the week? How's it overloaded? How does it progress? But yeah, I second that. My whinge of the week will probably ruffle some feathers, but I said this to you the other day. I'm kind of sick of goat talk in HYROX. The sport's 7 years old. There's no goat. There's obviously the names that get thrown around are obviously the early adopters that were very good, but I think we're seeing now that how can you say Lauren's a goat if Joanna's comfortably beating her in her second year of racing? She's obviously very good. It's no disrespect to any one athlete, but I'm a bit of a tennis stalwart and absolutely love tennis, and I think you can comfortably say that Djokovic is the GOAT of tennis because he's been the best across generations. But I think the GOAT talk needs to stop about a sport that's 7 years old and still developing.
Yeah, honestly, you could put the names in that, especially in the men's one. You could put the name. Ronk's done it longest. There's probably the most, and Tim have both been in it since 2017 and are very good at the sport. But on any other day, like somebody could totally pull it apart. And we saw that last year with World Champs. Ronk finished down in 8th or whatever. Lauren was beaten by Meg. So they're just people that have been, like you said, early adopters, got really good results, and we probably, in a sport that's basically adult PE, we're just pegging a little bit too much to them early on. I think there's more to come from this sport, and it's very much in its infancy. So inflating people like that is just probably not required, but it's good for clicks on the old social media, isn't it?
That's it. Well,
cool.
If you're happy to wrap it up there, because I've got dinner waiting for me, and then we can have a full episode next week about talk about periodisation, get to some Q&As, and wrap up the rest of Phoenix and the other races that have happened.
Cool. We got our batch of questions is growing, but if anybody else has got questions, just fire them into Chris and I in the DMs or on the Instagram podcast. If you got it, even we'll check the comments on YouTube and Spotify, which is uploaded. But obviously, apologies again that we did an hour and 20 minutes earlier in the week, but we had some technical difficulties. We did the full periodisation thing, but we'll catch it up next week. But hopefully, you can get your 51 minutes now, so you can get a little aerobic session done and listen to us ramble about Phoenix and stuff. But we'll go back into our hopefully weekly rotation of talking about training and trying to help you people out with our thoughts on training and how to develop that.
Very good.
Happy days, mate. Right, I'll speak to you next week.
Thanks, mate.